Hello and welcome to the FDT-TV podcast. I am better from dying from leprosy, and I am back with Mike this week. Mike, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you, mate. Not too bad. Bit disappointed over the weekend. I'm sure we'll come on to it in a bit. But yes, yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Highs and lows last week in terms of football, but overall positive, I think.
Yeah, I mean it's getting better. We've got a few things to discuss this week, as you can see from the thumbnail. Up the Toffies. What a comeback! I say a comeback. They should be sort of 10th, but they're point deduction. We'll get into that. We'll get into the media criticising VAR now, which I think is the turning point for the more positive, and we'll get into some shocker results, I think, because there's been a few. So where do you want to start?
Let's start with Everton.
Let's start where we meant to begin. Everton, they had a 10-point deduction. They've appealed it. But before they've even got the outcome for the appeal, they're already out the relegation zone. We did say they were going to do that. We did predict they would stay out, but they are playing some really good football at the minute. And it's one of those that they're starting to come good. They're starting to score goals. Big, strong, fast squad. Injuries are now seemingly in the sort of the background. Where do you think they could finish up for the season?
I still don't know whether... Well, I suppose it just depends if they go on a little bit of a run, which, as you said, the way they've been playing recently, they've got every reason to. I don't see them finishing in the top half of the table. I think still bottom half of the table, but close towards like the middle, so 11th, 12th maybe.
That, in fairness, that's where I was going to put them. I think we discussed it briefly before we started, and we shouldn't really. We should press record because we come out with some of our best content when the camera's not rolling. But I think I think we're in agreement that we both believe that their appeal will be successful in the sense of reducing the 10-point deduction, which I think is really harsh. I think they will probably go with a 5. I think, having thought about it just for a second there in my own brain, I could even see them taking a transfer ban for a year and having no points deducted. Now, I don't think that necessarily would be a good thing. I think that could be a harsher punishment in some senses. But if they went down to a 5-point deduction, it would automatically put them on 19 points, would it? 40, 50, 18 points. So they would still be sitting 15th, but only a point behind Brentford in 11th. Had they not got anything at all, they would actually be sitting 10th, only a point behind West Ham. Now, people are saying how good a season West Ham are having, and Everton are really poor. Don't know. Don't think there's that much in it, to be fair. But yeah, they are doing really well. It's nice to see. I think we've both got a bit of a soft spot for Everton. I mean, for me, I liked them when they had the Chang beer sponsor. Sort of that's the era I remember Everton being, and the stadium and the seemingly matchday experience hasn't changed since then. So no. I mean, what was that, 20 years ago? Something like that.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean,
they've had some quality players, just very quickly going old school.
Joseph Yobo,
obviously our boss, Duncan Ferguson, Lukaku when he was there, Rooney. Yeah. They've had some absolute bangers, and it just begs the question, doesn't it? Like how well they would do had they managed to keep. I know it's like a business sense to get rid of the players when they did, but you can't keep getting rid of your best players. No,
but I think they're at the point that they sort of had their downfall. I mean, David Moyes did very well on a shoestring budget, didn't he, for years? That's what he was known for doing. But I think they didn't have the backing at the time to compete with the big boys, and I think they were had they kept up the performances, they probably would have been there. I mean, even recently under Carlo Ancelotti, they did well, didn't they? I think I would argue they're doing quite well under Sean Dyche now as well. But it's one of those things that had they kept those players and kept the performances, they've always been that team that are best of the rest, aren't they? They're in around there. That's where you'd put them. But they've never been able to break into the big time, I don't think. Not on a consistent basis, anyway.
No.
I mean, would it cap a perfect season if Everton went on to win the FA Cup as well?
Do you know what? I've actually got a team reserved for the FA Cup. My prediction, I think, is Aston Villa to win the FA Cup potentially this year.
I still think they're going to win the Prem.
You think they can go and win it?
I think I said they'd be a dark horse to finish in the top four at the beginning of the season, but they've had a couple of big players come back. You think they've still got Emi Buendia to come back? What a creative masterclass that is! I think if they can keep hold of that squad and not get major injuries, I would put them up there.
It's based on their performance. See, it's their performances at home. They've been absolutely fantastic for 15 wins now at home.
Yeah.
In their last 15 games. It was funny. I was talking to someone earlier from work, and we were talking about Aston Villa, and we also talked about Unai Emery. Mm-hmm. Now, when we were going through a bit of a torrid spell with Unai Emery, he's possibly the first and only manager I've not got behind. And I remember having a conversation with Dan, and one particular message I sent him was, get him out of our club. Couldn't stand him. But it does kind of beg the question as to what would have happened had he been given the time like he's been given at Villa. Because I do think he come in. There was obviously some big egos at the club, some Deadwood at the club as well. What he could have done, given a bit of time, bit of money.
Yeah, I mean, I think he would have done well, but I don't think that he would have been given the good graces as such to just cut players like Arteta did. I think they were at a point where they had to make a decision, had to make it sort of harsh, and backed him because he had the fan support. And I think that documentary helped a little bit as well with people understanding. But I don't. I also I've said this for a long time. I think Arsenal was too big a club for him. He's perfect at that Europa League size club, which is what Aston Villa are. They are a big club. There's a lot of support there, but there's not an expectation to win anything. And where now they're overachieving, that sense of wow, we're really good. It pushes you on. I mean, look at West Ham when we started to become massive, and that when the whole fan base actually was behind the team, we were phenomenal for a good half a season. And then something went wrong, and we had one bad result, and that was it. The fan base dropped out, and we got relegated. No, not quite, but I think they could carry on that momentum. It's Man City. I don't know. Well, in fact, I don't know what any of the big teams are really doing this year. Liverpool probably the only one I'd go. They've found a bit of form now, but they've had a few new players in. They're starting to gel a little bit more. You can see a little bit more of intent, but still there's a struggle there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they've been quite fortunate with a couple of results they've had recently. Definitely had a rub of the green with some decisions recently as well. It's so unlike Liverpool to get a rub of the green in terms of VAR decisions. Closing the name. It's Liverpool. I'd say are definitely ones to watch.
Yep.
I know obviously they're top at the moment. Obviously we're having an okay run. I'd say the difference between us from previous seasons, and if we look at last season's particularly, when we did 2/3 of the season or 3/4 of the season at the top of the league, we were playing some really nice football. Mm-hmm. But when we lost, or when we conceded some of the silly goals that we were conceding, it's like that fluidity just went. Mm-hmm. Whereas this season, there have been points that we've gone behind, but we found a way to either nick a result, a draw or a win. Obviously, the game against Aston Villa was the exception to that, and Newcastle. But again, I think there were a couple of decisions that were inconsistent to what we've seen across the Premier League again this weekend, which I can go on to in a bit. But again, it's just one of those things. We'll just pick ourselves back up next time, and we'll go again.
My biggest thing, it did make me chuckle to myself, because I always think when I hear about Arsenal fans saying and pundits talking about Arsenal, I always think, what would Mike think? And I was going to ask you last week, but I was ill. So you beat Luton, didn't you? Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have said it was a convincing win.
No, far from it.
And after that win, people were going, the pundits and there was media outlets going, Arsenal are real title contenders this year. And I thought, well, hang on, you've just beat a team who have just been promoted well before they should have been. They've not got the finances to compete. Okay, they've got a little bit of Premier League experience in their squad now in Barkley and Townsend, but they're players who are well past their best. And you've beaten them with the last kick of the game, and now you're title contenders. And I get what, in a sense, what they're saying is you've managed to grind out a result.
Yep.
But I think the teams like that, you as title contenders, you should be blowing away. It shouldn't be a case of it's a really hard fall. Oh my God, we've got away with one there.
To be honest, in terms of Luton, obviously we discussed at the start of the season. We said they were going to be kind of the whipping boys of the group this year, because of the size of the stadium, their size of their budgets, and all that sort of stuff, and the fact, as you just mentioned, they seem to be ahead of their plan anyway. But that being said, let's not forget they've taken some teams when they've gone to Kenilworth Road. They've taken them.
Oh yeah,
to the wire. Liverpool, Man City yesterday.
I think they were really unlucky not to get a point against Liverpool, not to get a point against you, and not to get a point against Man City. And I think some of the bigger teams are struggling with that old-fashioned football stadium where the fans are on top of you and it's roaring throughout and the hour's your shit. Do you know what I mean? I think they're struggling with it because they're not used to it now in the Premier League game. It doesn't happen very often. But I'm quite enjoying watching Luton this year. I've watched a few games. I know a couple of people who are season ticket holders, and a part of me wants to go, when are you not going? Because I'll go. But it's like it's just enjoyable to watch. It's that throwback football in it. There's no, it's leave it all out there because we're going to get tonked 6-0. So let's go and score a couple of goals while we're doing that. But
well, interesting stat.
Go on.
That is the first time that they've scored 3 goals.
Is it?
In the Premier League since in the top flight since obviously they've returned.
Yeah.
At Kenilworth Road. And we are the team that keeps on giving, mate. I keep telling you that.
Well, you're a community-based club, aren't you? I mean, you got to look after the community. That's it. So I mean, I if I'm honest, I want them to stay up. I was having this conversation with my wife, who really wasn't interested. I said I want them to stay up because they'd get double parachute payments after 2 years. It would help out the club, and again, that's a fan base that's been put through the ringer, isn't it? They're the first team to be in the top flight of English division or top flight of English football, relegated out of the English Football League and get back to the top flight. And it's not taken them that long to do it. And it's good fun. And I mean, who doesn't like an underdog?
Absolutely.
You've got to go with it. So speaking of VAR, we mentioned it briefly. I said that we'd discuss it a little bit at the beginning of the show. The media and the pundits are now starting to turn on it and openly ridicule it, where before they were towing the line and saying about, oh yeah, but it's there, it'll get better, it'll do this, we'll make some changes and it'll become more consistent and we've got the best Premier League refs in the world. And Gary Lineker openly apologised for being a proponent of it and pushing it so we would have it in the English game because it's ruined football. Michael Dawson on the ref watch openly ridiculed the guy, saying, "Well, why does it take them 6 minutes? It's clear and obvious. If it's taking you 6 minutes, it's not clear or obvious, is it?" And it's the consistency that it's being applied with. Now we've banged on about this for years now. That the consistency is poor, and that it's subjective. It's not done in line with the law of the game. It's all subjective. The lines are drawn wrong constantly still. I mean, you had a goal ruled out the other day for offside, where clearly there was still a whole leg of a player the other side of the line that they'd drawn. And for me, I still think it's rigged. I still think there's match fixing. I won't get into that because I've gone on a tangent. But do you think... My question to you, having set the premise, is now the mainstream media and the football pundits and the radio shows are now openly ridiculing it. Is that the point where the Premier League and the FA will go, do you know what? We're going to scrap it because it doesn't work as we wanted it to, and it's an experiment that we've tried our hardest, but it doesn't go well. We'll take it away, we'll rejig it, and we'll bring it back in a new format in 2-3 years' time. Or do you think they're going to still go, no, we're still very good, we still get it right every time, and when clearly they don't?
I think it's something that's in the game now.
You don't think it's so going?
Disappointing. I can't see any reason, unless it went to some sort of vote. I don't know how a voting system would work with the managers and stuff, because I know they were supposed to be having crunch meetings a couple of weeks ago with all the managers and the PGMOL, because again the number of inconsistencies that we're seeing. And I heard I was watching one of the ref watches earlier, basically saying that on our game they're not there to re-referee the game. Yet on the Crystal Palace game, where they were given a penalty for exactly the same fucking incident, again took a bit of time to go over, and they basically said, "Oh, we told the referee to go and have a look at it." Well, why wasn't the referee told to go and look at our one? And I don't get it. I don't get how you can have subjective opinions about stuff. To be honest, I think if it was just for offsides, that's the only thing it was used for.
Yep.
I think that would be acceptable to an extent. I know you were saying about the lines and stuff, but we've been told this bullshit about the calibration.
I've got a point to raise with that, because I agree with you. It should be used for the offsides, but I've got a point that would make it better. But go on, carry on.
Okay. So yeah, if it was just used for that, then I could understand it. The on-field decisions would be okay. I get it. I would be happy with that. But what I don't appreciate is how you have one set of officials that are like, "Oh, I think you've missed something here," compared to another one that was like, "Nah, refs called it. Well, it is what it is." It just doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah.
And there's teams that are going to suffer, and there's teams that have suffered as a result of poor officiating, either from the standard of the referees on the pitch, i.e. that Manchester City game against Spurs the other day, which I went on in last week's podcast. The ref fucking wave play on. And as soon as Man City get the ball, oh no, we'll put it back for a free kick. And I said this in the video. I've spoken openly about this as well, that when you first come out with that statement, I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? But now it's almost like it's in plain sight, but you can't see it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. We're the only country, and I mean, not to be plagued by an investigation into match fixing across the world. It all stems out of Brazil and the Brazilian mafia, but it's spread across the world. We're the only league and country that's not been affected by it, and I don't believe that for a moment, considering the amount of Brazilian players they're looking into for betting and things like that. So, VAR in relation to offsides. they draw these dodgy lines, which are often not in line with the pitch, or they're not straight, or they're not calibrated to the right bit. And I get they're trying their best, and they're trying to do it as quickly as possible, which doesn't always make it easy. However, I went to Stamford Bridge for a VIP stadium tour with the old man for his birthday about 12 years ago. And in their stadium, they have, or in their home dressing room, they have a wall, and it had about 15 television screens on, all behind cupboards. You wouldn't know it's there. Of a match day, that's all opened up because all the players are wearing GPS. They're all wearing sensors in their boots. So for each player, it tells them exactly where they are standing on the pitch in real time. It tells them how far they've run down to the centimetre. It tells them how many touches they've had with the ball. It tells them how fast they sprinted, for how long and how many. That's what the club's own stats, because they want to know. They want a live feedback. And you'd notice years ago in the second half, Jose Mourinho would always come out 5 minutes after the game's kicked off because he was looking at the live stats before he made his changes. Now, that was 12, 13 years ago. It might even been longer than that. If they can do that then, why can't they do that now? Because I guarantee all those players are wearing better GPS, better sensors. I mean, you can buy it off of Amazon. There's companies that do it for people who play non-league, so they can record the whole game and get match stats and all this censored information. It's not that expensive. How are we not getting it right when we've pumped millions into it? So that was my thought process on that. And there's no excuse for getting it wrong, because you could get it right 12 years ago without a camera. It's all on GPS. So yeah. the other question I do pose to you is, keep VAR, sack all the officials, move them on, retire them. Do you think that would potentially change the name of the game, or do you think that just moves the problem for a little while?
I don't understand with the pace of the game that they've got nowadays. Mm-hmm. I don't understand why they haven't got a set of runners with cameras going up and down the side of the pitch.
Yep.
On both the touch lines.
Yep.
Because I'm not being funny. That if you wanted a clear way of seeing if there's an offside or not, there's your angle.
Yep.
You run it up and down the line of the pitch, because the pace of the players nowadays is unbelievable compared to what it be years ago. And there's going to be times, obviously, where the linesmen are almost second guessing. I know they have to go for coaching and all that sort of stuff, but there's times even they get it wrong nowadays, because otherwise we'd be seeing some of these goals flagged for offside, or when they do the review for offside anyway. So that is rule number one. I still think you need an official kind of referee in the game, so to speak, because you need to call when obviously there's fouls and all that sort of stuff. And if they didn't, it end up being like I don't know, some like brutal sports football where people are 2 footing each other all the time and there's no kind of repercussions or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think sack off the linesman, keep a match official, a referee definitely. But fuck off all of the ones that we've got, because they are useless. Absolutely useless.
Yeah, I mean, the managers are going ballistic at them now, and they're not holding back. I don't think there's a manager in the league now that hasn't had a go this season in their press conferences. And when every manager's having a go, you need to have a look at what the problem is, because it can't surely be all these players, all these refs, all these pundits, all these managers, all these ex-professionals, all the general public are wrong, and only those 20 referees are right. I can't see it. So, no. Just quickly, before we move on to our predictions, Joey Barton has been talking with Piers Morgan about female punditry.
Yes.
Now, in some senses, I think Piers Morgan got Joey Barton on, one, because he has his opinion, and he's not afraid to share it, which I think is commendable in some senses. But I think also what he was expecting is him to be explosive and not be able to try and hold a civilised conversation about his opinion. They had 3 female people on. One of them was a presenter, all shouting over each other to shout at Joey Barton at one point. But what he wouldn't name names because he's like, I'm not here to single people out. But what I can tell you is he was talking about Eni Aluko, who's fucking shit as a fucking pundit. And if I'm honest, I turn it off now. I love stats. I love the pre-match build-up. I love the halftime analysis. I love the after analysis sometimes more than the game because I'm that sad. But when she's doing it, did you know Aston Villa scored 22 goals against Manchester City? It's the most goals, 22, that anyone scored this season against Manchester City. And then she pronounced Kuleveski's name wrong the whole match. And I was just like, really? I get some of the names are hard to pronounce. I had a problem with Aubameyang for a long time. But in that sense,
I'm so proud of you.
I learned how to say it. But it's one of those things. If it was a bloke that had said it, if Jamie Carragher said, "Oh, yeah, Manchester City, Aston Villa scored 22 goals," everyone would turn around and go, "What are you talking about, Jamie?" And then he'd spit in their face. That's a dated reference. But because it's female, you can't say anything because you can't put it out. Now, Graham Souness has seemed to have disappeared from our sports cameras. Not seen him in a long time. But
who's that? Sorry,
Graham Souness.
Yeah.
But I think that's because he was calling people out on bullshit. And I want to say it was Alex Scott, who's actually one of the better presenters, and I don't mind her because she's got her head screwed on when it comes to football. Some of the terminology she uses winds me up because it's trying to change things that are there. But when she first used, "Oh, yeah, it's a low block," and he went, "No, they're sitting deep. What are you talking about, low block? No one's ever used that." And she's like, "Oh, yeah, we use it all the time." He's like, "No, you don't. No, you sit deep. You don't have a low block. No one knows what that means." And I think that's why, because he was calling people out. And in this day and age of cancel culture, I think it should go on merit. There are some male presenters who are equally awful.
Clinton Morrison.
Yeah.
Can't stand that guy.
But it's like, because they're trying to diversify, and Eni Aluko, I pick her out because she's awful. But what they're going to say is, or what some people say, and what I think Joey Barton was afraid of, is people would go, "You're only picking her out because she's a black female." No, I'm picking her out because she's consistently wrong. I think she's one of the games I put in the group about 6 months ago. One of the games she said that someone had run 800 miles in the game. You know,
that's impressive.
And it's like, no, they really haven't. And then they pull up the stats and they've run something like 8K. And she said, "Oh, it's 800 miles. It's not even the same measurement." It's like, yep. It's on a screen in front of you. And it just frustrates the hell out of me. And I think we should get rid of refs and we should get rid of bad punditry. I think like if you run onto the pitch, you get a stadium ban. I think we should have stadium bans for certain presenters, including Jamie O'Hara. He shouldn't be allowed to present.
No. Although it is funny when at the start of the season he was giving it all a big, and Spurs are back, this is their year, blah, 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 blah. And after their best start, they were still below Arsenal. It was brilliant.
He's... I'll give him credit. He had one good point, and I can't remember what it was. That I listened to him once, and he had one good point. Other than that, it's just like, shut up. You're the footballer that almost made it and never won anything. You never been to the big stage, yet you're talking to people who've been and won World Cups and Champions Leagues and played at the top level for longer than your career, and you go, "Oh, I think you're wrong." No, Jamie, you're wrong. You're wrong. So, predictions. Yes. We make some predictions every week. Sorry, that's my rant. That's my rant of the week about punditry. We make some predictions every week. We didn't make them for some of the games because obviously I was ill, and that makes it much more difficult. So the games were not this weekend's, not the midweeks, but the ones before that. So 3 games ago, because they're coming thick and fast now, aren't they?
Yes, yeah. So it was not weekend just gone, not the midweeks, but the weekend before that. Just to recap, we had Arsenal versus Wolves, West Ham versus Palace, and then Man City versus Tottenham.
Yeah.
The predictions that we had, you had 2-1 to Wolves, I had 3-1 to Arsenal. Score was 2-1. So 1 point to me, 0 points to you. West Ham versus Palace, we both went very solid, 2-1. To West Ham, it was 1-1, so 0 points there. Then Man City, Tottenham, you went 1-0 Spurs, I went 3-1 City. Score was 3-3, so 0 points there. So a massive total of 1 point for that week. That turns the season totals. Ian, you are still on 21, and I am now on 28 points. So a 7-point gap opening up, but as we do every week, that we're both not ill or crisis is going on in our houses. We have 3 more predictions for this week. Arsenal versus Brighton, West Ham versus Wolves, and the biggie for this week, Liverpool versus Man United. I think it's a game which definitely needs to be predicted. So we'll start, I believe... we are the earlier kick-off. Oh, no, we're both at 2 o'clock on Sunday. Arsenal versus Brighton. We are at home. I'll just kick it off. Yeah. Obviously, very disappointed to lose against Aston Villa. But again, there were certain circumstances which could have given the game a different outcome altogether had there not been this corrupt bullshit, VAR, visuals, and all this sort of stuff. So... Arsenal versus Brighton. Where do I sit with this one? I am going to go for... I am going to go back to winning ways for Arsenal. I'm going to go for 3-1 on this one. Obviously, we're in second, only a point off of top now. And Brighton currently sitting in 8th. Don't get me wrong, I think Brighton had a really good start to the season, has been a bit hit and miss fairly recently. So I'm going to go back to winning ways for us on this particular one, 3-1.
Okay. I can't disagree too much with what you said there, because I think you hit the nail on the head. Brighton, they've fallen away a little bit. But... you've got a we're both playing in midweek, aren't you? I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. Keep it short and sweet.
Yep, no worries. Next game, West Ham versus Wolves.
West Ham versus Wolves. Home. We're at home. We've got a game at home against Freiburg, which is really expensive, even though it's a dead rubber game. And it's £30 a ticket for the cheapest ticket up in the gods. There's some of them are £90 to see a game that no one wants to see. We are currently not training for a couple of days to try and abate a sickness bug. Now, I don't know whether that's a case of there is actually a sickness bug. I know I've been very ill, but I don't know whether some people in the playing squad have got it, or whether it's an excuse to give them a few days off so they're not getting hounded at the gates of the training ground after getting battered 5-0 by Fulham. Now, the 5-0, so you laugh. We should have been battered the last few weeks. Tottenham couldn't eat their dinner. We've just got lucky. We've been riding on our coattails for a long time, and when you look at the results, we're in a false sense of security in saying we're 9th for winning games because we've got 20% possession and 2 shots every game. So I'm gonna go with Wolves are a bit shit at the minute as well, but I'm gonna go with a 1-0 to Wolves, just because. If there is a sickness bug and we've got a midweek game, I think we're gonna fall foul somewhere. If Fabianski gets ill as well, then we've got Joseph Ayang, who I do like, but is he Premier League quality? yet to be decided. So 1-0 to Wolves.
I'm going to go the other way on this one. Again, you've had some okay results. Oh, wait, no, you've had some pretty good results recently. You've got what? 1, 2, 4 wins, a draw and a loss in the last 6 matches.
Yep.
And again, I wouldn't put it past you for you playing an extremely rotated squad in the Europa League, and then nicking a result at the weekend. So I'm going to go for a 1-0 win to West Ham on this one.
Fair enough.
And then the final one. Big game. Sunday, Liverpool versus Manchester United on Sunday, 4:30. I don't know how I sit with this one because I obviously have got interest in Liverpool losing against Man United because obviously we want to be top. The second thing is I think it'll just be funny just to see Man United losing again. So logically, the sense would be a draw, but I do kind of want Liverpool to lose this game because you've started seeing all of these stupid Liverpool fans. We are massive, coming back out of the woodwork. Funnily enough, when they're top of the league again, so I'm not happy about it. I want Liverpool to be put back in their box. I'd love to go for a 2-1 win to United, but I can see a draw. I'm gonna go 2-1 to United on this one.
This is what I was thinking along the same sort of lines. Bruno Fernandes he's got his 5th red card, hasn't he? So he's out for the next game, and people are saying he did that so he didn't have to play against Liverpool. I think in some sense that will make Manchester United stronger. And if I was Ten Hag, I'd go with Scott McTominay, Kobe Mino, and someone else in midfield. Maybe an Eriksen if he's fit. If not, chuck another youngster in there. Just go and play some football. Go and enjoy it. You might get trounced, but fuck it. We've gone from being the informed team and having player of the month Harry Maguire to being shit again. I do feel for Manchester United because I think they've got the right manager. But as we've said, the hanging over of the bits and pieces with the ownership is not good. There's a bit like Arsenal. There's a lot of dead wood there that just needs to be shifted on. I think was it the Overlap did a really good segment on it. It was Ian Wright, Gary Neville, Roy Keane, and I want to say Carragher, but I don't think it was. But they did a thing about whether that player should move on, be kept, or whether it was sort of the last chance saloon for them. And majority of that team was just got rid of. I think we could all see that they're not really there for the fight. They're there for the money, and there's a few players that you could make a decent team out of, but are there hearts in it? I think quality will prevail, and I'm going to go for. Do I go big? Do I go big? This is the question. I'm going to go for another trouncing. 4-0 Liverpool.
Okay, so just to recap the scores then, you've gone for 2-2 Arsenal-Brighton, I've gone 3-1 Arsenal-Brighton. West Ham versus Wolves, you've gone 1-0 to Wolves, I've gone 1-0 to West Ham.
Yep.
You've gone 4-0 to Liverpool Man United, and I've gone 2-1 Man U.
Okay. It'll be an interesting game. It'll probably be, they'll all end up 0-0 and we'll be really boring.
0-0, yeah.
There'll be 15 goals in each game, but VAR ruled it out for a fingernail. Yeah. So, I mean, have you got anything else to add to this week's podcast, Mike?
No, nothing else from me, mate.
Well, in that case, I've been Ian.
I've been Mike.
And we will see you next week.
Ciao, ciao.